Hey, it's Fitz, and if you don't know who I am, here's a quick bio. I'm a veteran sports journalist who writes, does TV, radio, daily YouTube videos, and I'm a longtime podcaster. Also, I have metastatic stage 4 prostate cancer that came out of remission in January of 23. During the pandemic, my doctors advised me to stay at home, and the Life of Fitz podcast was born. My original diagnosis forecast that I would be dead by age 60. But as I start season 5 of this podcast, I am 60 and still calling the many friends, athletes, coaches, colleagues, and medical advisors who I've met throughout my life. Oh, and I'm still hitting the record button and now doing so on video. Welcome to my life in the Life of Fitz podcast. The beginnings of a cancer journey, like the first days, weeks, and even months, are terrifying. There's so much unknown. You're trying to do research on your own. You're trying to absorb information. You might call other people you know who've experienced some of these things. And really, you need to learn how to navigate this process in your way. What works for you? I think the people who really struggle with the diagnosis kind of get overwhelmed and can't absorb all the material they're getting, all the stress they're feeling, all the emotions they have to manage. And I was blessed with a great support system from day one, whether it was family, my wife, my dogs, or even like fraternity brothers, because I had a couple of them that had been down this road. In fact, an interesting story is I found out that something was wrong with my PSA score, indicating maybe a problem with my prostate and possibly prostate cancer. I heard about that while covering the NCAA basketball tournament in 2018, the Sweet 16 round in Atlanta. One of my best friends in my fraternity from way back in the 80s had experienced fairly advanced prostate cancer and lived in Atlanta, Georgia now. So the next night, I'm at a restaurant talking to my buddy Tad about the journey and what I'm about to face. But as you work through that, you have to start dealing with medical personnel. And this is one thing I tell everyone. If you're not comfortable with a doctor, if it doesn't work, maybe they're incredibly competent, gifted, but they just don't make you feel settled and safe, find a new one. That's not necessarily what led me to Dr. Felipe Rosso here in Manhattan, Kansas. I simply wanted robotic surgery done. And my first urologist was kind of an old school guy who wanted to cut you open and rip out your body parts. I'd much rather have little holes punched and it done more, well, surgically. So that's how I found Doc Rosso. He was a partner in the practice. I switched over to him, and you know what? He was the right man for me. And he's been a blessing in my life ever since that first time I shook his hand. He's still in it. And we're going to talk to him right now to kick off season 5 of the Life of Fitz podcast, a podcast born of a man with cancer who encountered a pandemic and started calling friends. And I don't even have to call this guy because we're now going to have a conversation with Dr. Felipe Rosso right here in the Cats and Dogs studio. Hi, Doc. How you doing?
Good to see you, Fitz.
I know.
It's been a minute.
Thank God. Yeah, it's like, I've done my work. No, go move on to someone else.
I joke with my patients and friends. A lot of urologists, we just love to fix people and never see them again.
Yeah.
Just think of us like your friendly neighborhood plumber. You know, if you don't need to call your plumber, life is good.
Literally the plumbing.
That's right.
And always joke, Doc, you're always going in the exits. I started with your partner and I learned the valuable lesson that I should have known before I ever went to the urologist. When you shake hands with the doctor, always check the size of his fingers.
Yeah. John Devine had some pretty big hands.
Yep.
Lessons learned the hard way, right?
Yes, exactly. We were chatting before we started here that, this happened so quick. I just had no indications of anything because I didn't even know what a damn PSA score was until, a select quote agent in Orlando, Florida called me randomly when I was covering basketball, NCAA tournament in Atlanta, and said, you need to get to the doctor. Your PSA score is too high. I'm like, okay. And then Googled PSA score. But within a month, I've got my diagnosis. And, so that was in late March.
Yeah, 2018.
Yep.
Yeah,
And my
was that right?
surgery was July 3rd.
Yeah,
That's
right.
pretty quick, isn't it?
Very quick. Yeah, very quick.
Because this sucker was moving.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the way we diagnose your prostate cancer is the most common way we diagnose prostate cancer. You weren't really having any problems. It was a
Just a
blood.
little leakage. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blood test that really kind of led to us kind of sitting down and talking. And your levels were high enough that, yeah, we wanted to kind of move quickly. And I'm glad we did.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you saying, well, the first open date is July 3rd, but you probably don't, you'll be in the hospital 4th. And I'm like, no, that's great. My neighborhood, there's a lot of fireworks and I don't like them.
Yeah.
I'll be really happy. And plus, there wasn't many people around, so I got pretty good care too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But I switched to you because you did the robotic surgery, which I wanted to have. And of course, my paranoia then became that on the day of my surgery would be the day the robots rose up against mankind.
That's right.
That did not happen. But I presented some interesting challenges for you. First of all, you did more than just the prostate surgery on me.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think we ended up doing 3 surgeries on
Yeah.
that once. Yeah, it was a busy day. I
had,
had my lunch that day, I remember.
Abdominal hernias, and I had a hydrocele issue. Folks, I'll tell you anything about prostate cancer, but if you want to know what a hydrocele issue is, go look at that. Fellas, get ready.
Yeah, I would warn you to look out for that Google image search. There's going to be some stuff that shows up.
And that was my biggest part of my recovery. But I weighed 353 pounds on the day of surgery, and that made it tough, didn't it?
It did. We definitely know that larger individuals have tougher surgeries to perform. Their recovery is tougher. Sometimes outcomes aren't as great. And there's been a lot of science that's been put into it since we did your surgery that have really demonstrated that the more you can do to be active, the more you can do to kind of restrict your calories and lose weight, people just end up doing pretty well. So we're a lot more aggressive in terms of kind of barking at people to kind of shape up before surgery nowadays.
Yeah, I didn't have much time to shape up, and I didn't shape up, and because of course, being Irish, my immediate reaction was, okay, let's go have some drinks.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that one.
But so I was a big dude. For the robotic surgery, you got to strap me down and legs in the air, right? Like
we do
45-degree angle or
so
something.
With the robotic surgery, just laparoscopic surgery, where we're entering the body through really small openings. And to get to the prostate, well, there's a lot of things in the way. So the way we position men is we kind of put them with their head down, so everything kind of shifts out of the way. And that itself can kind of cause some issues, especially in larger individuals. But we were able to do it safely, and I was really happy how your surgery came out. It was just challenging.
If I recall, it was a 6-hour process with everything else you had to do. I ended up with no abdominal hernias and Frankenstein's ball sack.
That's right.
But the surgery was brilliant. I mean, I had no recovery issues from the surgery.
Yeah, I think you went home the next day, right?
Yeah. It was great. And but when you got into the field, what did you see
in terms of
my cancer?
Your cancer things were going pretty textbook until, part of the surgery involves to remove a man's prostate. We have to actually disconnect your bladder and the prostate. Right. And just there's some normal tissue findings that we typically see in most men, and yours were very irregular. In surgery, we always talk about planes, finding the right area, separating tissues, and your tissues didn't really kind of follow the textbook. Something didn't seem right. We took additional biopsies, had to take a little bit more. Only later would we find out that the reason why was that your prostate cancer was invading the bladder.
Good times.
Yeah, good times.
But you thought about taking the bladder, didn't you?
That's pretty drastic, to be honest with you. No, I mean, usually you can be more aggressive in terms of how you approach the surgery, and that's what we ended up having to do for you. But no, usually it doesn't come to that.
Now, I always freak people out when I tell them this, but my post-surgery, I think it's 10 days. I was on the catheter with, the Foley bag. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was so fearful of the catheter that it'd be just a miserable. I slept through the night because my bladder was essentially hanging on my nightstand, and I never had to wake up.
Yeah.
Plus, we have extensive gardens here, and our new sponsors, Blueville Nursery, for a reason, because we do a lot of that stuff. My new neighbors at the time, they're still there. I walked out the front door a couple days after surgery, and Tim, my neighbor, said, "What are you doing?" "I'm carrying my bag of urine." I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got my urine, and I'm going to go put it on the hostas to keep the rabbits away.
There you go.
And he goes, that's really a good idea. And I said, do you want my urine? And he said, no, I'm good on urine.
Yeah.
So make the most of what you got.
Yeah. I mean, you're not alone. I have a rare guy. Most guys are super excited to get the catheter out. It's usually their kind of worst enemy during the recovery period. But yeah, I mean, if you're having urinary issues, having to get up at night, it's kind of eliminated with the catheter. So I'm glad that brought you some joy.
Yes. Yeah, it was nice. It was like, oh, this is great. But post-surgical, I was in pretty good shape. I really was. Thank you. I mean, you did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
And my bladder issues, once the catheter was out, was returned. Everything was returned to normal. But because of the spread, we couldn't mess around. We had to get into radiation.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, most men. I mean, you had your surgery. How old were you? 53.
Yeah, I was 53.
53. I mean,
I mean, it was in July, so I turned. Today is my 60th, so and we're recording this on June 1. So I turned 54 during the whole process.
Yeah. So, I mean, you lived with your prostate for 53, 54 years, and it disappears within a couple of hours. It's usually a pretty significant shock. A lot of men have a lot of urinary issues afterwards that are typically temporary, but everybody's different. So yeah, I'm glad that you had a good recovery.
Yeah. But going to radiation, middle of football season 2018, I thought it'd be a huge challenge. I did the first round of radiation here in town, and Dr. Bell and his staff just knocked it out of the park. But we had something interesting happen. Becky, my wife, asks great questions. She's a journalist too by trade. And she asked Dr. Bell, what are the chances of this radiation working? And he goes, oh, I've got that printed out right here. And, I'm sure it's a computer program. It puts all the parameters in it, spits it out. And I said, 27%. And I'm like, so you're telling me that there's only 27% chance this is going to work? And he goes, yeah, unfortunately. And but Becky noticed at the bottom, life expectancy, less than 6 years. And I'm like, here I am. This is the birthday the computer said I wouldn't see.
Yeah.
And so that I'm not a big birthday guy, but this one has some importance.
Well, you deserve it. And happy birthday. And again, thanks for inviting me to spend time with you on your birthday.
Well, you brought me bourbon. So,
That's right. That's right.
We're good.
It's off camera, right? You can't see my bourbon off camera. Right? No, and it should be celebrated. So congratulations, and super proud of you for also being a very important advocate for men's health and prostate cancer with your experience. And that's something that's a big round of applause your way. I think it'd be helpful if we kind of backtracked a little bit and, we talked about your surgery, your outcome, and then, we jumped into why. Maybe let's talk about why you needed radiation treatment. So, the PSA test, which was the blood test that led us to your diagnosis after prostate cancer treatment, it becomes a very useful marker to determine what's the cancer status. And usually after surgery, if we achieve a cure, the PSA goes down to 0.
Right. If you don't have a prostate, you shouldn't have one.
Yeah. There's no factory. You can't produce a chemical. Your PSA level actually never went down to 0. So when we see something like that, it's kind of a big red flag that, okay, there's something left. There's something has been left behind. When you couple that with how aggressive your cancer was, that was kind of the reason that we did radiation. We don't always recommend radiation right after surgery, even if a guy has kind of more aggressive cancers, but yours was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. I think it was you that said it was one of the most evil looking cancers you'd seen.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. So when I do shit, I do it right. I don't mess around.
I don't have ass around here. Very good.
Yeah. And because of that, and like you said, I've been an open book, and that was one of the things I decided that as a public figure, I'm not gonna hide anything. Literally not hide anything about my prostate cancer. So we go to radiation. I do it. I really had no problems with it. Daily. Ran into my neighbor there, which was kind of funny. I'm like, what are you doing here? And he goes, I've got advanced prostate cancer. The guy lives 3 houses away from me.
Yeah.
And the effect of that was, one, I got the 27% outcome. It worked. It absolutely worked, because with my reoccurrence, I went into the recovery phase, and I was looking good. They just got 3 years, no PSA, so I'm in remission. That lasted a year, and it was back. And I just assumed it was back in my bladder. And it wasn't. The bladder's still clear.
Yeah.
It was in my lymphatic system. So it must have been microscopic spread from the very start. Just took 5 years to do its thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the radiation, man, most of my problems now are because of that I'm not complaining about it. It worked. But the nerve damage was, you'd had to take out. Now there's 2 nerves, right, for erectile function.
Yeah, they're a bundle of nerves basically on each side of the prostate.
Right. And you took out one side because it was intertwined. And the radiation absolutely fried the other one. So the little soldier he's dead.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean,
R.I.P.
Yeah, that's just the price of victory.
Yeah, it's tough. I look at it that you were kind of kicked while you were down. So most men take a good amount of time to recover from both urinary and sexual function after surgery. We think the recovery period for urination occurs during the first year, maybe even longer. Sexual function can take over 2 years to really start kicking back. And when you throw in radiation during that healing process, we really think it makes a significant kind of difference, and it interrupts the healing process. And so, yeah, you were kicked while you were down.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's part of the process.
Yeah, necessary.
And my ability to hold my bladder also severely declined.
That's right.
So I'm on what we call snuggeries in this house, but undergarments 24/7. I literally am. And so I use that to scare men. It gets them to the doctor real quick. Don't be like me.
Yeah.
I can't get a boner and I pee my pants.
Yeah.
So that's motivating for men, and that's exactly why men don't talk about this cancer.
Yeah.
It's exactly. There's so much of shame around those things that most men don't tell people about it. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to deal with it within their own head. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to do this.
I think you're exactly right. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I'm sure that you start opening up about your experience and they come out of the woodwork. I'm sure tons of people have said, oh my God, this is what I'm dealing with as well. But prostate cancer is the most common most common cancer that affects men. Every year, close to 300,000 men get diagnosed with prostate cancer almost yearly in the United States. It's just a tremendous number.
And it's all around me now. I mean, Becky and I are going to Vegas the end of the week that this runs with 3 fraternity brothers and their wives. And this brings me to something else I wanted to talk about. But 2 of them, we're all the same age, basically, within a year. 2 of them had stage 3 prostate cancer. So there's 3 of us within 1 year of the fraternity that all had pretty identical things, but they caught theirs a little bit earlier before it spread. It had broken out of the prostate, but didn't go anywhere. The 4th guy is the only prostate on the trip.
Oh, wow.
He's an outlier. But the irony is, and you can explain why, he's African-American and he's the one who doesn't. And that's, I talked to Coach Tang about it. I mean, we need to get the word out to the Black community that fellas, you're much more.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of effort being kind of undertaken to get the word out. And yeah, you're right. There's a 60 to 70% higher incidence of prostate cancer in African-American men. And the issue is those men are much at higher risk of having problems and even death because of prostate cancer. So there's a huge discrepancy in terms of care that they're really identifying and trying to work pretty hard. It's pretty important.
Yeah, it's been part of my message from the start is, I just want guys to get to the doctor. I had a buddy text me and goes, prostate's fine, but you got me to the doctor and I'm pre-diabetic. Yeah. We don't go to the doctor. Yeah, we just don't. Right. Particularly the older generation of Western Kansas, those tough as nails farmers. Yeah. And they'll put up with a lot of pain and discomfort before they finally give in and go to the doctor. And sometimes it's too late.
You're totally right. I mean, there's a huge benefit in preventative care. And, a lot of that we see, for example, we see a lot of sexual dysfunction in the world of urology. And a lot of the issues that contribute to that contribute to heart problems as well. So risk factors like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all of those things, everybody knows that can contribute to heart problems. But the link to sexual function is not really known to a lot of guys. So that's super important. You can prevent so many different things, including sexual function, which is usually top of a guy's list priorities.
Yeah, but for good reason.
Yeah,
for good reason. But yeah, I don't know if I annoy people. I mean, a lot of people thank me for it, but at some point, the 59 now 60-year-old man making pee-pee jokes on Twitter gets a little weird, but I'm comfortable with that.
Oh man, I would love to just look at your DMs for like 5 minutes and see what those are like.
Oh, that's well, thank God Elon Musk changed the DM policy. So the randoms, I got to follow you for DMs or I got to initiate it.
Yeah.
Let's take a short break and hear from our sponsor, Blueville Nursery.
For competitively priced landscape design, irrigation, and lawn maintenance, turn to Blueville Nursery, a family-owned business with more than 50 years of experience. You can trust the Blueville team to design and create a landscape that will accentuate your property's aesthetics. And visit our garden store 6 days a week for the best products in the area. From ornamental trees, shrubs, and flowers, Blueville has it all. Blueville Nursery, located on West Anderson Avenue in Manhattan, Kansas.
Now, let's return to the studio. But
Cool.
you are a musician.
I am.
It's those gentle fingers, right?
So to speak. Yes, absolutely. Music's been a huge part of my life forever. I mean, I think starting as a kid, I was in music lessons with piano, and I played cello and orchestra growing up. It was really when I went to college. So I went to KU. Applause.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to KU for undergrad.
Now I'm filled with regret.
No, don't worry about it. It's all good. But yeah, I got really into guitar. I lived in the music and arts dorm with a bunch of hippies, and it just
That's
exposed
awesome.
me to extraordinary amount of music, and basically haven't looked back ever since.
And so what you're in a band, right?
Yeah,
Still?
I play. Well, I used to say I played a couple bands. Here I play with a group called AO. We're kind of like a cover pop band kind of.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We get like hired out for parties and bars and stuff. It's a really good time. I used to play with a band called Muzizi, which was a fantastic reggae band here in Manhattan that had a 20-year history. Fortunately, recently our lead singer Kendrick passed away.
Kendrick,
so,
just a Manhattan
icon.
icon.
Very sad, very missed. And so he was kind of the oak tree of the of the. We can't really replace a 60-year-old Jamaican dude with dreads down to his butt.
Not in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah. I mean, let me know if you find someone.
Yeah.
I think I know.
He was incredible.
I know one other Jamaican guy, and I already asked him. I felt like I was kind of typecasting him. I'm like, "Can you sing for us?" No. All right, we're host. Yeah. No, I love it. It's and we have a wonderful musical community that people like. Last night we actually played a gig at the Wareham. Actually, it was really nice. It was
cool.
Yeah, a little private party, and Dr. Wayne Goins from K-State Jazz came and sat in with us, and it's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of stress. You're literally dealing with, important issues. So is that just a great relief?
It is. It really is. It's a good creative outlet. Really kind of just let loose. Yeah, it's been very helpful for me for sure.
Well, I was surprised to find it out. Like Becky had an event at Metal Art and goes, "Hey, your doctor's gonna be the man." I'm like, no wonder he's got gentle fingers.
That's right. I always tell people I think I'm a better surgeon than I am musician. That way, they're like, "Man, this guy sucks at the bass. What's he doing?"
Well, I don't know if I've told you this. I called a doctor friend of mine, when it came surgery time, and I said, well, it's Jimmy McAtee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fraternity brother too. And I called Doc McAtee, said, "Doc, should I go to KU? Should I go to, Cleveland Clinic? Should I go down to Houston, MD Anderson?" And he goes, "Who you seeing?" I said, "Rosso." And he goes, "That's what I have to do it."
Yeah.
Thank you. You don't need to go anywhere.
To thank him. Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's a high praise. Thanks.
Yeah, he and that's, folks, that's a key. If you know someone in the medical profession, ask them literally, who would you see?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. And rarely are we kind of in an emergency situation. Surely we kind of hit the gas pedal with you, but the idea of reaching out and making sure you have a good vibe with the person that you're interacting with, that's huge. I'm actually usually an advocate for second opinions. I think if it's not an emergency situation, you get more information. Plus, if you go and hear the same thing 5 different times, you're not getting smoke blown your way. I'm a huge KU guy. I trained at KU, so big shout out to the cancer team there. Dr. Will Parker is their prostate cancer specialist. Him and I trained together at KU. He's a good friend, and we share a lot of patients. And so I usually try and nudge people to stay here in Kansas with the Kansas systems if they're interested, as opposed to going out. But if people want to go, that's totally fine. I don't really have much of an ego when it comes to something like that.
You have to do what feels right for you. And if going to Cleveland or Houston or or up into Minnesota. If that's what feels right, then
Absolutely.
that's one of the things I talk about is me, a sports guy, I always say, you're the general manager of your team. You get to pick your coach, who's your oncologist, and you get to pick everyone else on your team, including your support team. And if they're not positive with you, fire them.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry it's cold, but even if it's a family member who's being negative and affecting your ability to handle this situation, you gotta move away from that.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think these days, the old fashioned paternalistic, angry doctor saying, this is what you have to do, and your opinion doesn't matter anymore. Those days are gone. It's all about shared decision making. And you're
Right.
right. You have to have you have to have a good vibe. You have to have a good instinct and gut feeling as to kind of what you're dealing with. And, I consider myself a easygoing guy, easy to talk to, but I don't get along with everybody. And if there's a mismatch, then I have no qualms in saying, hey, go seek help elsewhere. We're here for you if you need us, and no harm, no foul.
And I also did the same thing when it came to picking the oncologist. I had I don't even remember what year, is 2010-ish. I had a rare form of Graves' disease. I had non-thyroid.
Yeah, I remember
Graves.
hearing about this. It affected your eyes, right?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I spent probably 18 months with a migraine.
Ugh.
It was and worked. Affected my mood. I drank way too much. I mean, it was self-medicating. And at the end of the process, well, nobody could diagnose me because nobody around here had seen non-thyroid Graves, because you treat Graves, you kill off the thyroid, and it solves itself. This didn't have an easy solution. So I saw Dr. Whitaker at KUI. I was with him for about 3 minutes, and he diagnosed me and said, you have non-thyroid Graves' disease. And he goes, honestly, I've never seen it in a middle-aged man.
Wow.
It's usually in elderly, primarily female elderly patients. So I've got that going for me. And as it turned out, there was no known treatment for a middle-aged man.
Wow.
They couldn't. So they knew what they would try, and it worked. A cocktail, basically.
Yeah.
But then at the end, they had to reset my eyes because you get the bulging eyes.
Yeah.
So they went in and carved out my sockets, broke my sinus ceiling. It was a very traumatic eye surgery. So I'm wearing makeup right now because I have huge black rings. So I happened right at this time period to have a meeting with Dr. Whitaker, one of my last follow-ups. I said, ask him the question, Doc, if you had prostate cancer, you needed an oncologist, who would you see? And he said, Dr. Peter Van Veldhuizen. Yeah. Didn't hesitate. So I went to start seeing him at Menorah Medical. He used to teach at KU, right?
Yeah, he was our head urologic oncologist. Yeah, or medical urologic oncologist, I should say. While I was at KU, yeah, super good guy, very quiet, calm.
Yoda.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw that guy raise his voice once.
No, he was so calm. He's a little guy.
Yeah,
I just called him my cancer Yoda.
Yeah, great way to do it. Yeah,
I mean, it was just, and that was what I needed. Because I'm kind of, and he's just like, okay, it's okay. This is what we're going to do. And so he got me through my initial treatments, and then he decided to get back in teaching and moved up to Rochester, New York, where he's teaching again. So I was in remission at that point. So I just saw his partner. And when I came back out, I called you up and I called at some other people, and everyone said, I call her Dr. Libby, Elizabeth Birchfield Worf. I don't even know her full name. She's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Again, at KU Med. And I gotta say this, I'm one of the most known K-State people.
Yeah.
That colored bird has never looked more beautiful than when you have a medical situation.
I'm sorry we had to turn you to the other way under these circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, but when I went to KUI, I'm like, I'm so glad to see you, colored bird. It's so wonderful to see you. It's an amazing place.
It is. Yeah, it is. We're very fortunate to have it here, and it just keeps growing and expanding. They do wonderful things.
And they have a Topeka campus now, which I did my radiation at. Thankfully, I didn't have to go all the way to Kansas City. We're talking about, I did proton, which I can do in Kansas City now. I was going to have to, go stay up there. And that didn't really work too well. So I drove daily over to Topeka, got it done. And again, it spread into my lymphatic system. But there's none in my bladder. So it's amazing what happened.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
But that radiation was tough. But I got through it. What they didn't tell me was to do my neck. I had to get a mask done.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, those things are kind of straight out of like a horror movie, aren't they?
Yeah, it's out in our garden right now.
Oh,
After we're done here, we'll go outside. We're trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
I just used it as I had to move some baby bunnies because the dogs found them.
Yeah.
And I moved them to where I thought Mama might find them, and I think she did. But I used that to protect them.
Oh, there you go.
It's leg in the yard.
Yeah, I think you should use it as like a Halloween decoration to scare the kids.
We're gonna hang it on the fence. We're thinking about kind of filling it with stuff like that cocoa material that you put the stuff you put in baskets and stuff, and make it a birdhouse.
Oh yeah,
because they can come in through the eyes.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
That's got to be horrifying.
It's creepy. So what they do is it's a sheet of plastic material that is kind of like cloth until they get it wet, and they literally pull it over your face, aggressively shaping it, and then they pin it down and they mark your eyes and your mouth, and you come back and you've got this kind of hard plastic mesh thing that they screw to the table so you can't move. Doc, I'm claustrophobic.
Yeah, that's got to be horrifying. Goodness gracious.
I mean, I couldn't. Well, first of all, they didn't tell me they were going to do this. They said they're going to prepare me. They didn't mention this. And like, you have to give me massive amounts of drugs to get this pulled off. Yeah. So luckily that was only like 5 sessions or something.
That's good. Did you have immobilization during your pelvic radiation?
No.
Did you have a sexy little dot tattoo?
Yep. Why can't they make it like a fun color? It's just a black dot. Couldn't it give me purple?
I don't know.
Couldn't they make it brown so it looks like something?
Like a mole.
It looks like when you were a kid and someone stabbed you with the pencil lead.
Yeah.
This is an old people thing.
Yeah.
Kids, you don't know what we went through. And it snapped off, and like you forever, you have this black lead thing. That's what it looks like.
I'm sure you could get a good cover up. Shout out, Matt Goss can probably take care of you here.
Exactly. Let's get the giant Skinner logo right across here. So me. Or like maybe a dolphin diving into my belly button.
There you go.
But that was quite the process. So shout out to my nephew Ethan, who became my chauffeur for the week. I remember going to every appointment. I don't remember leaving any of the appointments. He said I was just out the whole time.
Yeah. A lot of guys are pretty fatigued during their treatment.
This round kicked my ass.
Yeah. Plus, you're also on medications that also cause fatigue. So it's kind of a double whammy for you. So, yeah.
Yeah. If it's a side effect, I've got it for my daily. I call them my chemo pills. They're not technically that, but it kind of defines what they are.
Yeah.
It's severe fatigue, runny nose. Sometimes my videos look like I'm a rabbit. I'm constantly.
Sure.
And
but look at you now. You're what, 8 years no, wait, sorry. 6 years post-diagnosis. Your PSA is currently at undetectable levels. You're on oral medications, right?
Yep.
And you have not needed chemotherapy, correct?
No, that's the thing we're holding back on, which is thank God.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to know that there's a plan B and a plan C, but it's great that you're not there. I mean, yeah, you have definitely beat the odds, but I think you've done things in a very good way. You didn't mess around. You were aggressive. You sought appropriate counsel and care and opinions, and you jumped on it. So you're right. A lot of guys don't, or some people just like to slow play it inappropriately. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for this.
Men don't want to face the consequences of what this is.
Mm-hmm.
When they start researching it, it's freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
But like I told you before we started, one of my best days was the day of my official diagnosis. Yeah, it's cancer. Because now I knew my opponent.
Yeah,
I knew what I was up against. It's always the unknown, the test results you're waiting on.
Yeah,
it just
you're
chews you
totally
up.
right. It's the scary thing is not knowing.
Right.
And when you have it in front of you, then you can start planning and you can logic it out. And there's emotions that go with it, of course, but it's really scary not knowing. You're totally right. I get that.
And it took me to some other places. I've discovered for myself, THC is really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I would never do it in the state of Kansas where it's not legal. No. But we do go to Colorado quite a bit. And that's very helpful. But I want to seriously spring this on you and get your opinion.
Oh, sure.
I call it my Alamo, which is a horrible way to put it because they all died. But there is a dog dewormer that has had success against cancers. You know about this?
No, not at all.
So Oklahoma State was running a cancer test on mice. All their mice got worms. So they said, okay, we got to shut down the test and get the worm solved of the study. And they solved the worms and they restarted the study. None of them had cancer anymore.
Interesting.
So a vet in Oklahoma used it on himself when he was beyond medical care. His cancer disappeared.
Interesting.
So that's, if all else fails, cheap over-the-counter dog dewormer. You can get it at Orscheln's.
Oh, good Lord.
This has no side effects. It's just, what the hell? Oh.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Sorry. Our first disagreement.
Well, also
disagreement on camera here.
Also, I did flirt
audience,
with.
don't do that.
I flirted with Rick Simpson oil.
Okay.
Is it Rick Simpson oil? Which is high dose THC.
Oh, wow.
Like
gotcha.
the full dose, it's like almost like a glue, like really thick glue, and the full dose of it is a size of a rice kernel.
Interesting.
And you start with half of it, so it's hardly anything. Yeah, I would like to be able to function in society.
I mean, there's good evidence that THC has been shown to help cancer patients with nausea and pain. And pain. Unfortunately, because of the current classification, there's not a lot of studies that can be done, and hopefully that changes, because I really do think there's a potential benefit to it in more than just that setting.
The last 3 presidents, I'm like, they're going to be the one that changes this nonsense, and I think Biden's finally getting to it, hopefully. But
yeah, I mean, as a physician, I'd feel much more comfortable with you smoking weed than taking, what is it, dewormer oil.
Yeah. I could take flea medicine too.
You could.
But for me, the other thing is, when you're stoned, you don't worry about shit. Even if it's slightly stoned, it just kind of relieves the stress.
Yeah.
And I'm an overthinker. I've got that creative brain thing where it's kind of always going.
I connect with that a lot. I suffer from that too. Hyper analytical. Yep. I know the type.
So that's helped with that. But when I can do it legally, I do it. Just in case the police are watching.
Totally fine. When's our trip to Colorado again?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I am going to Vegas. And it's legal out there. They've got, if you ever go to Vegas and you want to explore this, folks, Planet 13, 13, what is it? M's the 13th letter. Planet 13, and it's like the Costco of weed.
Oh, wow.
They've got a cafe / sports bar. They have, you walk in and when I was there a couple trips ago, I was at register number 97.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So now you know how big it is.
Yeah.
And it's all in cases and all that. And they're not just checkup, they're advisors.
Yeah.
Usually they're stoned. That's what's so funny. The only job.
These like weed sommeliers.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome.
And I know, what a life. They usually I went to one someplace. This girl was like, yeah, man, and I'm like, but she was so helpful. She knew the products. But yeah, this place is incredible. You can watch their production of their own products. And so that'll be our first trip. And one of my buddies said, yeah, I got to stop by there too and take some home. I'm like, you're going to fly with this? Yeah, I don't advise that, buddy.
I completely agree.
So that's hypothetical. He's not doing that. Feds watching my podcast.
So again, advise against dewormer, advise against flying with marijuana.
Becoming a drug mule for yourself. Yes. Yes.
Now, if that place where it's truly the Costco of weed, do they sell $1.25 hot dogs?
No, they should. That'd be so funny.
That'd be awesome. Especially
considering the product. They should have a whole snack counter. You can load up on your snacks before you head back to your hotel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're getting close to Planet 13 because even if you're in an air-conditioned car, you smell it about 5 blocks away.
I bet.
Oh, I hate that smell.
So you gamble? Are you gonna?
I do a little bit. I play blackjack.
That's fun.
I really stopped drinking for the most part. I now do a little bourbon.
Can I have my bottle back?
No, we're gonna put that. My neighbor's a bourbon guy, so we'll get into that around the fire pit at some night. And it's it's just life-changing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I
In
mean,
positive ways too.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have reason to celebrate. It's always nice to have something to look forward to. So good for you.
But as we wrap up here, I want to thank you for your expertise, but your friendship too.
Yeah,
We've kind of
likewise.
hit it off.
Yeah. I think we're kind of brothers from different mothers. We have
Yeah.
kind of similar senses of humor. And obviously, we went through a very important and kind of really significant kind of process together. You've done great. I mean, you're beyond the services that I can offer you. But yeah, I'm always here for you if you ever need anything like that. It's good to connect again.
You know, some days you just want a man to put his finger up your butt. Cancer journeys are terrifying, but they also come with great rewards, and you make new friends, and you start to value things much differently than you did before. I am blessed to have met Dr. Felipe Rosso. Probably never would have without a cancer diagnosis. Even in the darkest days, pinpoints of light can come through. And he is certainly a big beam of light for me because he still radiates in my life. I'll just text him randomly and, we just pick up a conversation. It's really not about medicine anymore. So this conversation got pretty deep into my diagnosis and treatment and the things I went through pre and post surgical. But I think it's valuable to go back to the beginning and let everyone know what happened to me and why they need to avoid it. I vowed when I got my diagnosis on that day when I was sitting on the back porch of my favorite restaurant, Taco Lucha, here in Manhattan, Kansas, with a buddy sharing a beer, and I found out that it was indeed cancer. From that point on, I vowed that this shit might take me. This might be it. But I'm going to save some brothers on the way out. And you know what? I think I have, and I've made some new friends that have the bond of brotherhood, such as Doc Rosso. Appreciate you watching this first episode of season 5 of the Life of Fitz. Hey, there wasn't supposed to be a season 5, so this podcast, like everything else in my life, it's extra time. Here we go. I'm going to make the most of it. I appreciate you listening to this week's edition of Life of Fitz. And thank you to all the great people at Blueville Nursery for sponsoring our show. This has been a Spirit Street production.